We interrupt this program with a special bulletin. America is now under martial law. All constitutional rights have been suspended. Stay in your home. Do not attempt to contact loved ones, insurance agents, or attorneys. Shut up. Do not attempt to think or depression may occur. Stay in your home. Curfew is at 7 p.m. sharp after work. Anyone caught outside the gates of their subdivision sectors after curfew will be shot. Remain calm. Do not panic. Your neighborhood watch officer will be by to collect urine samples in the morning. Anyone caught interfering with the collection of urine samples will be shot. Stay in your home. Remain calm. The number one enemy of progress is questions. National security is more important than individual will. All sports broadcasts will proceed as normal. No more than 2 people may gather anywhere without permission. Use only the drugs prescribed by your boss or supervisor. Shut up! Be happy. Obey all orders without question. The comfort you've demanded is now mandatory. Be happy. At last, everything is done for you.
And wear your mask and take your jab for your Führer and your fatherland. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet, except possibly Jello Biafra's. They are not representative of friends, foes, supporters, detractors, sponsors, and certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind, and they are guaranteed to choke you with a big fat dose of the truth cock. We're off and running, guys. It's time for the Sunday sermon. Might be having a little problem with the YouTube feed. If you guys are on the YouTube feed now, let me know if it's coming through, and I guess we'll be around. Everybody in for the drum roll. All the subtlety that ice picked through the forehead and a foot in the ass. I am the Reverend, bringing you the Sunday sermon once again, boys and girls, from that mysterious undisclosed location in the high desert of Oregon. Jumping it off with a little Jello Biafra, because there's always room for Jello. Jumping it off with a little Jello Biafra for the sermon, and it was, I think it's appropriate. You know, you go back and you look at that piece. The piece is entitled Shut Up, Be Happy. I'll get to that in a second. I want to give credit to the guys that do the bumper music, as always, jumping off with the band Red Desert, from the smoldering ruins of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the track is Older No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older, and every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks more than others. But the jump off was a track from a fellow by the name of Jello Biafra. It's called Shut Up, Be Happy. And it's decades old. Jello was one of my earliest influences as a spoken word performer on a whole lot of levels. He actually was a big inspiration for me to run for mayor of Houston back in 1991. There's a little something that some of you newcomers might not be aware of, but yes, I actually did run for mayor of Houston in 1991. It was really kind of a bad joke that spiraled totally out of control. You guys remind me, I'll tell you about it one of these Sundays. Not this one, though. But yeah, I actually got 67 write-in votes. I'll take it, you know. But Jello was a big influence, man. He was a big influence because at that time, let me go, fresh fruit for rotting vegetables. Indeed, Ryan, indeed. I'll go ahead and fade the bumper music out, man. We'll jump right into this thing, man, because I want to talk a little bit about Jello and his importance, Jello's importance in and of himself, and also the impact of that specific piece, and how not only his own politics may have changed, because I really don't keep track of Jello Biafra anymore. Um, there were a couple of things that I wanted to go over with regards to the man, and that piece in particular, along with a piece called "Become the Media." That was another piece of his that I was a big fan of, and sort of took it to heart, and popular culture was taking it to heart. Here's the thing with Jello Biafra, man. Yeah, even though he plays the game of I don't identify right or left, clearly most of his politics lean left. I wouldn't go so far as to call the man a hard leftist, though, and here's why. Years and years ago, and you can tell by the context of that track, "Shut Up, Be Happy," back then, I was pretty left-leaning politically, which is why Jello really kind of spoke to me in that moment and with that piece. The authoritarians at the time were hardcore conservatives. They were the evangelical Christian right. Now, my problem has always been with authoritarianism, period. Most people don't play it like that. They are totally okay with authoritarianism as long as it's their side that's in charge, their team that's in charge. Here's the width and breadth of it for Jello at the time. The PMRC, Parents Music Resource Center, you guys remember the warning labels on the records and the big push for censorship and all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, it was coming primarily from the evangelical Christian right, but also a number of left-leaning politicians. We need to keep in mind Tipper Gore is the wife of Al Gore, who was Democratic vice president and presidential candidate, the famous debacle of the 2000 election. And of course, the climate change thing. We're not going to get off on Al Gore. Here's the thing. During the heyday of the PMRC, they actually raided Jello Biafra's house because his band at the time, the Dead Kennedys, had featured a work from H.R. Giger. It was a work called Penis Landscape. And you guys can Google that if you want. If I would have thought about it, I would have pulled it up and just made it an overlay here, and I could have dropped and shown it to you. But it violated obscenity rules, and the PMRC went after the Dead Kennedys rather than a lot of acts that were signed to big labels, because they didn't feel like, and quite correctly, did not feel like Mr. Biafra could sustain a long, drawn-out legal battle. Are we having difficulty with the camera here? I think we are. We got a little. Let me see if I can clear this up. Hang on. Give me like 2 seconds. Oh, wait, here comes my close-up. Yeah. All right. Yeah. See the toothlessness. I don't know what's going on here. Here we go. Might have been a problem with camera resolution or placement, or not really sure. Anyway, not that it's relevant as long as we can keep the thing rolling. They were quite correct in their assessment that Jello Biafra could not afford a long, drawn-out legal battle. The Dead Kennedys could not afford that. And so he basically got persecuted in much the same way as Larry Flint. You might disagree with his material, his politics, or any of the things that he does, but they are essentially martyrs for free speech. What was really tragic to see in this pop culture was how Jello Biafra and his plight was completely ignored, but everybody came to the aid of 2 Live Crew when Nasty As They Want to Be got into some legal trouble. It's just fucking ridiculous, but again, characteristic of the American social landscape with regards to the entertainment industry. Anyway, Jello did that piece, and all of those things still apply. Check out the main line in the middle of that piece. Shut up, be happy. The main line. The number one enemy of progress is questions. Does that sound vaguely familiar in this day and age? And it's not coming from the religious right anymore. It's not coming from evangelical Christians. It is coming from the political left. And no one with 2 brain cells left to rub together in a shred of intellectual honesty can argue with that. So I'm kind of curious as to where, I would like to sit. I've had the privilege over the years a couple of times of being able to sit and just shoot the shit with Jello Biafra at some of the spoken word gigs. And I've always found him to be a fascinating character, even when my politics differed vehemently from his. He's coming from a place of honesty, and you have to respect that. Also, he fucking walked it like he talked it. He took the brunt of that free speech war at the time. He took the brunt of it. He paid for sticking up for his values, and you have to respect that as well. The other piece that he did that I feel like is relevant to this early part of the discussion, and then we're going to jump on into the stuff that I want to talk about for the sermon, is a piece that he did called Become the Media. You can look the piece up on your own and listen to it in its entirety, but the essence of it was, because there were so many people that were hating on the media, because even then the media lied, and it was obvious, not quite to the level that we've arrived at now, this Pravda-esque thing that we have going on now, but they were lying directly, and it was all about protecting corporate money and corporate political agendas and things like that. And his take was, don't hate the media, become the media. When he did that piece, desktop broadcasting, desktop publishing, all of those things, they were still in their infancy. We didn't have social media. We didn't have the tools. We had camcorders, some of which were the size of small anti-aircraft weapons. We had camcorders, and we had fax machines, and the computer nerds had BBS, the fucking bulletin board systems. And those were our methods of communication. But even then, he saw it. The way to get past the lies and the propaganda, and some of the stuff that we're going to get into here for the sermon is going to deal with how that propaganda is being foisted upon us. But the way to get around that was not to hate on the media. At the time, we didn't have any other options. You had your three major networks, and then eventually four, when Rupert Murdoch jumped into the fray with Fox. And you had your cable stuff, and you had public access. But as a general rule, we didn't have the tools to become a media unto ourselves, to look at things from a perspective outside of that corporate narrative and to deliver that to a large audience. Fast forward a few decades, and look where we're at. A dumbass, fat, loudmouth, crippled crane operator with some opinions is now broadcasting to the entire world through one little slightly fogged up camera and a laptop computer. And I have worldwide access. I can speak my mind. I can speak the truth. I can give facts and perspectives and narratives of my own to the entire world. We didn't have those tools then. Now, keeping in mind, again, because I haven't had the chance to speak to the man or really follow up in any kind of way, because he's not really quite the public figure that a lot of other folks of his ilk are. When he did the piece, Become the Media, again, right-wing evangelical Christians were the ones that were really pushing the authoritarianism. Now that it's political conservatives, for lack of a better word, obviously there's a spectrum, but when it comes to alternative media, when it comes to the people that are using the internet, that are producing content for alternative media sources and alternative media outlets, when it comes to the people that are producing the content and the people that are seeking out that content, it tends to be conservatives. And with Biafra being somewhat of a left-leaning individual, I'm just sort of curious. I wonder what his take is. If anybody keeps up with him online, feel free to send me a message and let me know how his thoughts may have evolved on that over the years or not. But anyway, just another fascinating character to look at. You can agree or disagree with his politics, and I have done both on occasion over the years. I was never a big punk rock person. I'm sorry, I was a metal kid. I didn't dig punk. I still don't. Henry Rollins, formerly singer of Black Flag, has been a role model. He's taken a hard turn to the left in his old age, but in my developmental years, his words were a big influence on me, as were Jello Biafra's. I dug their spoken word stuff. I dug their political stuff, their social commentary, things like that. But I was never a punk rock dude, and I'm never gonna be. It just, sorry. You can explain it to me from now until the end of time, and I'm just gonna look you in the eye and go, dude, don't fucking get it, but rock on, you know. So anyway, a little bit on Jello Biafra, and I wanted to open the program with that particular piece because we're in that now. We're in that sort of dystopia, and it didn't come from the people that at the time either Jello or myself would have expected it to. It's coming from the left. The political left controls every facet of American culture at this point, and there's no person with a shred of intellectual honesty they can even half-ass try to deny that. They control academia, they control entertainment, they control 90+% of the mainstream media, the legacy media, the quote-unquote legitimate media sources that everybody still feels a need to consult, even though they're busted in lie after lie after lie after lie. They control it. They control the entire spectrum, and they have controlled the narrative on all of these things, whether it be the border situation, whether it be the great replacement, and we're going to get into a little bit of that when we talk about the border here in a minute. Specifically with regard to the COVID hysteria, they are the ones that are driving this. And again, it's not that hard to visualize because it's already happening in Australia right now. You want a bellwether for where we might be headed if we don't pull our collective head out of our ass here in the States. Take a look at what's happening in Australia right now, and then go back and listen to that piece. In fact, I want you to just go to any YouTube channel that features the stuff that's coming out with regard to COVID out of Australia right now, and just shut the sound off. Just watch the footage and play that track in the background and see if it doesn't track just perfectly. Stay in your homes. Remain calm. Anyone caught outside the gates of their subdivision will be shot. Currently, it's rubber bullets. They may bump it up. All of these things are coming to fruition. And the only difference I submit to you right now between Australia and us is the fact that a couple of decades back, Australia confiscated what from its citizens? You guessed it. So if there's any mystery in your head of why we may be pushing so hard to put common sense restrictions on the Second Amendment, the difference between us and Australia right now is the fact that we have over 300 million guns in circulation in this fucking country. Otherwise, they would already brought down the hammer. They're obligated right now to go with incrementalism. And segueing into the first of our bullet points, you have heard me say this before, and if you haven't heard me say this before, either you haven't been paying attention or saddle up and listen to me say it now, because it is a fact. The war does not have to be about the control of people as long as you have won the war to control people's perceptions. Let me say that again. It doesn't have to be a war about people control as long as you have established perception control. That is why these tools that we're talking about, when we're out there trying to become the media, as it were, that's why these tools terrify them. That's why they will find extreme examples and seek to use that as justification to regulate free speech. That's why you're constantly hearing them openly lament free speech laws. And, the trouble with these free speech laws, and, that's all part of the narrative now. They're terrified. They're fucking terrified because currently, because they control all the social elements, they control the perception. If you control the perception, you control the reality, control the stimulus, control the response. I wanted to go back and revisit the Milgram experiments this week. I think we'll probably bump that on down. But just real quickly to touch on that, it is amazing what people will submit to on no more authority than a lab coat and a clipboard. Why? Because we have the perception control. Let me explain to you how this works. I want to jump into the Arizona thing real quick, and it's a hot button issue, and I need to be very careful in parsing the statements that I make with regard to the Arizona issue, because a lot of stuff is getting pulled, and a lot of people are being banned from YouTube for making specific statements. So I in no way want to make an unequivocal statement of fact that any election, national, state, or otherwise, was stolen. I am not making an unequivocal statement to that degree. I am discussing these things for two reasons. One, to make observations about discrepancies, but moreover, the larger point is to illustrate the control of perception and how that translates into control of the people without having to put anybody in handcuffs, without having to put people in gulags. Of course, if it comes to that, they're more than willing to do it, but it doesn't have to get there yet. And here's why. So the difference in algorithms and the difference in search engines. Okay. We know that big tech, says the guy who's doing this broadcast on a big tech platform, Twitter, YouTube, and temporarily banned from Facebook. They do censor, they do shadow ban. That I will state as an unequivocal statement of fact. They do it. They can hem and haw about, well, no, editorial decisions. Blah, 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 blah. No, they shadow ban, they censor, and those censorship decisions that they make consistently go against conservatives. I'll just give you an illustration really, really quick. This was the specific wording that I entered into the search engine when I was preparing this thing to talk about the outcome of the audit in Arizona. This is the specific phrase that I entered into both search engines. And you can do this for yourself. You can check behind me. The exact words that I used were, quote unquote, discrepancies in Arizona audit. Okay. Discrepancies in Arizona audit. Now, I entered, quote unquote, discrepancies in Arizona audit into the search engine for DuckDuckGo. And these were the first search results that came up. Arizona Maricopa audit reveals thousands of discrepancies. That search result hit 3 times in a row. Then Arizona audit finds huge discrepancies in county claim. Arizona audit claims to find discrepancy with over 74,000, right? Audit expert reveals 74,000 vote discrepancy. Bombshell Arizona election audit results found decertified. Arizona audit finds Trump won state by law. These are, again, and the words that I entered into the search engine for DuckDuckGo, discrepancies in Arizona audit, period. No who's right, who's wrong, what were the numbers, who won the election, just discrepancies in Arizona audit, as if I were postulating it as a question. Hey, now that you guys are done with the audit, did you find anything that looked a little weird? Seems simple enough. Those were the results when I entered it into the DuckDuckGo search engine. Now, keep in mind, guys, right-wing suppression by big tech is a right-wing dog whistle and a talking point for the blah, 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 blah. I entered the exact same words into the Google search engine. And do this yourself. Never take anyone's word 100% for anything, not even mine. Check for yourself. Do it. Go right now and do it. Well, I mean, after I'm done. But discrepancies in Arizona audit. Same exact phrasing. I entered that in the search engine for Google, and these were the first results. Arizona audit, a multitude of unsubstantiated claims and no proof of fraud. Second one, Cyber Ninja's GOP-backed audit of Arizona votes still show Biden won. Guardian, Arizona Republican audit finds even bigger lead for Biden in 2020 election. Bigger lead for Biden. down, and it's only when we get down, scroll to about 10, no, 15, I mean, about 15, 16 down, where we finally get a search result that says audit contractors find inconsistencies in Arizona election. And even then, I'm not going to, I won't go down that rabbit hole and examine every story for you, but I'm giving you the tools. You can go in and look for yourself. So, bearing all of these things in mind, and I have a couple of people who are on board today, who are involved in big tech and subject to non-disclosure agreements. So I won't ask them to out themselves, but they know and have confirmed to me personally. It's not like we needed the confirmation. And real quick, I just want to say hello to everybody that showed up. Emmy, Joel, Joey, Sultan of Sarcasm is here. Carrie and Roman from opiumtales.com, our flagship sponsor. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. You can check them out at opiumtales.com. Not only are they sponsors, but they're very, very good friends of mine. I just wanted to slide that in so we don't miss the sponsor shout outs. Steve Jetton is on board, and G-Dub, I'm glad you made it out. Okay, outside of that real quick sidebar, let me jump back into it. Yes, big tech is deliberately manipulating results. They've been doing it for a long, long time. And that is just one of thousands of examples. And again, I encourage you to do your own homework. Go and see it yourself. Go and see for yourself what it's doing. But I'll pull one of those results and show you how opinion is being shaped. Arizona Republican audit. This is from the London Guardian. Arizona Republican audit finds even bigger lead for Biden in 2020 election. Okay. This is how they came to that conclusion, boys and girls. This is how they came to that conclusion. And this is what they are counting on, is that people don't dig any deeper and people don't read past the headlines and people don't step outside the legacy media for any of their stuff. What they found in a hand recount, and this is what the Guardian had to say about it. In fact, a hand recount found 99 additional votes for Biden and 261 fewer votes for Trump, which is true. Counting all of the ballots again. Here's the part that they ignored. Because if you just count the ballots that were cast again, it totally stands to reason that the count is going to come up the same. What they're conveniently ignoring is that there were literally tens, and this was found in the audit, there were literally tens of thousands of votes that were at the very least errantly and possibly illegally and in some cases even fraudulently cast. Tens of thousands, a discrepancy of somewhere in the neighborhood of 74,000. Here were some other findings from that audit. Okay. So you've got the big bundle of votes that were cast on election day. Okay. Well, we got the big bundle of votes. Let's count them again. Oh, look, we found that Biden got even more, but it's the same faulty ballots that you counted in the first place. What they didn't bother to tell you, okay, official canvass had 3,432 more ballots cast than the list of people who show as having cast a vote in Maricopa County. That's one county, a primarily red county. 9,041 mail-in voters show returning more ballots than they were sent. 277, these are all results of the same audit, but casually not mentioned by the London Guardian. 277 precincts showed that in the official canvass is having more ballots cast than people who showed up to vote, for a total of 1,551 excess votes. There are 2,472 ballots shown in EV33 that don't have corresponding entries in the follow-up, and only 2,042 ballots show as rejected from the official canvass for a discrepancy of 430. It goes on and on and on. 397 mail-in ballots show as received and never show as sent. 255,000 early votes show in VM55 that do not have a corresponding follow-up entry, let alone no signature verification, let alone the fact that the machines were, in fact, contrary to what we have been told, connected to the internet. Ignoring all of these things, we are looking at a discrepancy. Again, this was all found by the same audit that was reported by The Guardian as a vindication for Biden. Oh, look, Biden got even more votes. They casually failed to mention that there was a discrepancy with regard to 74 plus thousand ballots. Now, I'm not saying the election was stolen. I'm not saying the results aren't valid. I'm not making unequivocal statements of fact. What I am suggesting is that, hey, maybe we should take a look at that at the very least, rather than just brushing it off and having the Maddow guy get on MSNBC and tell us how the audit itself was a threat to our democracy. Because I promise you, had Gavin Newsom not won the California recall, that was just a facial tick. I wasn't rolling my eyes. Had Gavin Newsom not won the California recall, they would have been all about some fucking audits. Again, these people would not know a principled argument if it bit them in their sanctimonious, self-righteous asses. When you have a discrepancy of 74,000 ballots, 74,000, particularly when most of the discrepancies are coming out of predominantly red Maricopa County, and Biden won the entire state by only 10,000 and some odd hundred votes, that definitely bears looking at. But they're not looking at it. They acknowledge that there are discrepancies, but the only thing that they mention in the mainstream press is that the hand recount came up with the same number. That hand recount ignored the 74,000 ballots that they found discrepancies with. So if you count all of those 74,000, of course, you're going to come to the same final number. And this is how they control the perception. They rolled with that headline, by the way, 4 hours before the official full results of the audits were released. They wanted to get out there and started. It is my supposition and my speculation that they wanted to get out ahead of this thing and start doing damage control. So all of the legacy press carried it. Oh, look, we actually found more votes for Biden. We're vindicated more. And they went and they ran with it. If all that you were listening to, and here's the thing, even Fox, that's right, Fox, those crazy right-wing Trumpinistas over at Fox News, certainly they'll be on top of it. No, they won't. Why? Because they called Arizona for Biden before anybody else did. They're not talking about it. OAN is talking about it. Newsmax is talking about it. And the independent and largely conservative independent media is talking about it. They are talking about it on platforms that are easily censored by our big tech overlords, and you can expect to see a lot of that. Oh, Joey, this is why we love you, man. Dewey defeats Truman. Oh, my God. That's how I felt. That's how I felt the night of the 2016 election, actually. I get a little slug of liquid enthusiasm here. Give one more sponsor shout out before we jump on to the next topic. My bros Casey and Dusty Tellison at Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. They have the Viking Longship, their smoker truck. They have it out at American Gun and Pawn off of Sprague every Thursday. Get out there, get some barbecue. Tell them the Reverend sent you. It's not going to get you a discount, but it'll definitely start a cool conversation. And go see him. And get Casey's book, Freaks of a Feather, the Memoirs of a Marine Combat Vet. Available on Amazon and published by Latop Press out of Spokane, Washington. We had Casey on a couple of weeks ago, and we keep pumping that book up because it's a fantastic piece of literature. So this is how they are controlling the perception. And if they are controlling the perception, it stands to reason that it's not going to be that difficult for them to control how the grazers view reality. Here's example number 2. and I won't get involved again, illustrating the difference in search results. Here's the search prompt: Border Patrol whips Haitians. Border Patrol whips Haitians. One set of results on DuckDuckGo, another set of results on Google. Border Patrol whips Haitians. Top results on Google are, of course, the narrative. That they banned the use of horses. That Biden is promising consequences for the border agents in question. Yada yada yada. Top results on DuckDuckGo. Paul Ratcha says border agents did not whip Haitian migrants. Well, who the fuck is this Paul guy? He's the guy that took the photos. Oopsie. You see, that didn't come up in the Google search with the same wording, Border Patrol whips Haitians. It didn't come up that the photographer who took the goddamn photos said that they were not run down on horseback and they were not whipped. And here's the other thing that Google doesn't mention: the full video is out there. The full video is out there. Yeah, you can search it. You can go look for yourself. The entire narrative of racist border patrol, the systemic racism, and that was another thing that was early on in the Google search results: the systemic racism of the United States Border Patrol, a United States Border Patrol that is now, by the way, over 50% Hispanic. But again, systemic racism. The amount of the amount of sheer intellectual gymnastics that are required to sustain this sort of narrative in the face of it completely falling apart as it has. They're doubling down. They keep doubling down. They keep doubling down, and they will continue. They will continue to double down on this. They are promising consequences for the Border Patrol. Now, here's what happens when you let a situation like that go and get to the point where we have literally thousands of migrants from an island nation that somehow managed to get here in the middle of hurricane season. That somehow managed to get here in the middle of hurricane season from way the fuck over there. Again, they have explanations for that. A lot of people, now this is their fallback for that. Oh, well, they didn't cross the ocean to get here. They were already living in South American countries. Oh, okay. So why the fuck did they come here? Oh, right. Because the Biden administration has been encouraging that. They have been leaving the fucking border open and guaranteeing amnesty to anyone who can fucking make it. So why wouldn't they come from those South American countries? Again, don't want to go off down that rabbit hole. Here's the bottom line. And Brother James Pearson, I'm glad that you made it. As a law enforcement officer, you can speak to this. When you let a situation get that far out of control and then crack down on the very people who are supposed to enforce the law that you have callously disregarded and refused to enforce, and they enforce it. They do their fucking jobs, and you promise them consequences? What is the overall effect of that? Sesame Street is brought to you today by the word demoralize. That's right, boys and girls. That's the intent. In the same way that when Mayor Ted Wheeler in Portland disregards the actions of the Antifa maggots, and the district attorney refuses to prosecute them. In the same way that in King County right now in Washington, I posted this to the Reverend Bart page, that law enforcement officers are being told that they have to pretty much ignore felonies in a lot of cases. You have a guy who's got a stolen vehicle, you can't pursue him. Even if the vehicle's been found in proximity to another felony, you can't. Go back and look at the post. It's on the fan page, Reverend Bart fan page on Facebook. Go check it out. And again, these leftist DAs are refusing to prosecute, even in the middle of a red state like Texas, right? Even in the middle of a red state like Texas, in the blue city of Houston, District Attorney Kimberly Ogg, Judge Lena Hidalgo, turning convicted felons loose prior felons, multiple violent felons, turning them loose on PR bonds. They had one gentleman recently, I'm sorry, didn't mean gentleman, predatory miscreant scumbag recently, who had been convicted of shooting at a cop, but was turned loose on a PR bond because he missed. So I guess they're giving him the benefit of the doubt for being a bad shot. Well, it doesn't matter that he's shooting at cops. He doesn't manage to hit any, so we're going to turn him loose. They turned him loose on a PR bond. He was already in violation of multiple bonds ahead of that, not showing up for his court date, and he wound up committing an act of murder. Here's a little nod to my former sister-in-law, Nancy, who was a cop in Houston for many, many years. She made a post earlier in the week. If we are going to prosecute bartenders, if you have a bartender that lets a drunk driver go without calling him a cab, lets him leave, he gets behind the wheel of a car and kills somebody, the bartender is liable. Why do we not hold judges to the same fucking standard? Simple question. But again, I've gotten off, run down tangent street here. The overall thing is this. The push is to demoralize the police. The Biden administration is trying to demoralize the Border Patrol. These blue city mayors, these blue state governors are doing their best to demoralize law enforcement. And why wouldn't it have the effect of demoralizing them? When you are getting out and you are leaving your family every night and going out and putting your ass on the line to defend the grazers, only to have your hands tied behind your back, all your resources taken away. And then when you finally do get the scumbags anyway, the DAs just fucking turn them loose. At some point, you are going, any human being, I don't care how devoted you are, I don't care how principled you are, how strong you are, any human being who has to tolerate those set of circumstances for a long enough time is going to lose their will to stay in the fight. He'll be like, fuck it. I'm just showing up to collect my paycheck. And eventually, the good cops weed themselves out, and the only people left are loyalists. Loyalists who will toe the party line, loyalists who will engage in morality policing, loyalists who will ignore Antifa maggots barraging your house with rocks and vandalizing your property. But if you step outside with a shotgun, as happened more than once in Portland, you step out on your front porch with a shotgun and tell them to get off your property, guess who gets arrested? Eventually, you will have no one but loyalists left to enforce these dictates and to enforce these mandates, as we're seeing in Australia right now. Don't you think it's kind of funny that they're supposed to protect us from a virus that makes it difficult to breathe? And the way that the Australian cops have chosen to keep us safe from this is by anybody who doesn't wear a mask gets choked. Am I the only fucking guy that thinks that's a little odd? Again, off on a tangent. You demoralize these people enough, and you do it systemically and intentionally, and eventually they say no. And Brother James, that's exactly why you are Brother James. Because you are sticking around just to spite him. And thank God for you and the other 7 that are going to be left when this is over with. Not to make light of it, but I know you understand where I'm coming from because we've had this discussion. Eventually, you have nothing but loyalists. And this is how authoritarian governments take control. You demoralize the line of sheepdogs that separate the sheep from the wolves. You demoralize them. And eventually, you have nothing but wolves in a sheepdog role. And in the meantime, You teach the sheep to hate the sheepdog, assuring them that the wolf is never going to show up and that the wolf is just a misunderstood fellow who wouldn't be so wolfish if those damn sheepdogs weren't so fucking mean. Funny how that works, isn't it? But it goes across the board, from the Border Patrol to local police to the military. We'll close with that. We will close with that. Brief sidebar. Two things that I wanted to go over. And in fact, no, you know what? This will segue nicely. The Center for Disease Control director overruled not only the FDA, you remember we talked about this last week, the FDA voted 16-2 to reject Pfizer boosters for the general population. The FDA. That's still a victory. Don't let the negativity get to you, because that's part of demoralization too. And I'll get back to that. The CDC director overruled not only the FDA, but her own advisory panel at the CDC for approving Pfizer boosters for the general public. What happens to the good people at the CDC and the FDA? The ones who really are diligently trying to follow the science. They quit. High-ranking members of the FDA and the CDC have already quit over this very thing, because it has the effect of demoralizing the good people. And so they leave, and they're replaced. Replaced with what? You wind up with more loyalists. And again, Biden is not a dictator. Biden is a cadaver. But his handlers will put any figurehead that they need to, because it's about protecting the regime. In the same way that it wouldn't matter if Kim Jong-un's sister, who scares the fuck out of me, by the way, on a personal level, were to poison him or somehow take him away. It would not matter that that particular figurehead gets taken out. It's the loyalty is not to the figurehead, it's to the regime ultimately. Now, granted, they do worship their figurehead like a god, like some of the leftist faithful do here. But it's not about that. It's about protecting the power of the regime. You demoralize, the good people leave, you replace them with loyalists, and eventually you have nothing but people that are going to toe the party line. You have heard me say this before, that in instance after instance, historically, when it breaks, the military side with the people and the police side with the system, with notable exceptions, like Brother James. That's how it normally goes historically. But you wind up with nothing but loyalists, and it's easy to see how that plays out. Of course, them overruling the panel, I'm sure, had nothing to do with the fact that, and feel free to look this up, over 400 million doses of that booster had already been ordered before he even made the speech. But I'm sure this isn't about protecting corporate profit, because, you know, the United States government has never been about that, right? Sandbox wars for oil. Anyway. Getting back to it. Greg Stube, representative from Florida's 17th district, released a news article this week about how the DoD COVID-19 vaccine mandate would negatively affect military readiness. When we're talking about ways to keep loyalists around, what better way than to mandate a vaccine. These are my words, not his. But the overall view of this memo, and he is not alone. A number of other representatives and military figures have come out and expressed the concern that the number of people who will walk away from the military rather than take a forced jab can reduce troop levels to the point where it affects military readiness. Do you think the regime gives two flying fucks at 6 rolling donuts about that? No. Because the people that leave needed to be gone. It has the effect of what? A purge. A Stalinist purge. You guys know a lot of bad things about Uncle Joe Stalin as opposed to Papa Joe Biden. You can look up, and the estimates vary widely, but you're looking at between 780,000 and 1.2 million Soviet soldiers, or Soviet citizens rather, that were killed during the purges. A good chunk of those were the military. He went in and killed a number of generals. Now, we thankfully, not yet anyway, we don't live in an authoritarian system which enables a leader or the regime for whom the leader is a figurehead to just go in and start chopping heads off and sending people to gulags and disappearing people in the middle of the night. We've got the propaganda mechanism in place to cover it up, but thankfully we haven't gotten to the point where a president, any president, can just wave his hand and have generals executed without people going, hey, hold the fuck up. But this vaccine mandate has the overall effect of that same purge. If you're not going to shut up and do what you're fucking told, then get the fuck out of the military. And for those of you whose first fallback is, well, you know, when they signed up, they knew that they could. Right. Okay, you're right. You're right. They knew that this could happen. Remember Gulf War syndrome? Anybody? You know, from the original Gulf War back in 91, all those shots that they gave to soldiers that went over and all the mysterious symptoms that fucking came back down, and they explained it away. Remember how the military treated victims of Agent Orange that came back from Vietnam, and they pushed it back, and they pushed it back, and they pushed it back until most of them were dead, and then signed off on a settlement for pennies on the dollar. Yeah, the military is known for doing some shit like that. So we're just going to ask these people who have volunteered. We're going to ask these people who have stepped up to protect our liberties. Shut up and do what you're fucking told. Well, you know, the same people who are saying this now, the leftists who are supporting the regime now and saying to do this, were the ones that were howling right next to me at the first Bush administration with what they did to the soldiers and the way they treated Gulf War syndrome. So where are you now? They're unprincipled. They're liars. Point fucking blank. They're tribalists. Their team is in charge and they don't give a fuck. And the overall thing, hundreds of Navy SEALs, by the way, just another quick one. This one coming from the lid. Hundreds of Navy SEALs are under threat of dismissal for refusing the COVID vaccine. Now, these are the SEALs. Tip of the spear. And we can argue all day about what the superior tactical force is. I mean, when it comes to that kind of thing, Rangers lead the way. Anyway, we can talk about all that. But it's not just the SEALs. It's the entire Spec Ops community. They are the tip of the fucking spear. They are the ones that we desperately fucking need. And they are the ones that are leaving the most in droves. They are the ones that we can least afford to lose. Why are they leaving? Because they can't be a part of this anymore. And who are they going to be replaced with? People with the same skill sets that are going to be loyalists. The effect is to demoralize. And it's happening across the board, having the effect of a Stalinist purge in the long run. They don't have to kill any officers. They don't have to put any soldiers in gulags. We'll just have a vaccine mandate. And if you don't step up and take the fucking jab, get the fuck out. Because we know that that's one place where you won't do what you're told. And then there'll be another test and another test. Like when they dig into your social media history to determine if you're a right-wing extremist. Right-wing extremist, of course, being defined as anybody who differs from the regime. Do you see how this works? Why? To demoralize, to break you to where you lose the will to stay in it. So they're doing it for law enforcement on the local level and the federal level. They're doing it at the government level, the people who are there legitimately to protect our health at the CDC and the FDA. Demoralizing people until they leave and replacing them with loyalists. They're doing it in the military. Digging deep into your personal history. Have you ever had an independent thought of your own? Have you ever had a thought where you disparaged great leader? You got to go. You're not going to take the jab when you're told. You got to go. And the effect is to demoralize, to ideologically break you. Well, Bart, you're correct. Clearly, what does this have to do with me? Because the same way that them pushing policy is designed to demoralize law enforcement or public authority or the military, roundabout to the media, the narrative is there to demoralize you. Because if they can demoralize the general populace, make independent thinkers, critical thinkers, people like us, think that we are alone, lone voices in the wilderness, if they can demoralize us by forcing passports to where if we don't take their jab, we don't get to shop. We don't get to participate in society. We are the other. They can demoralize us and break us, and they think that they can take us without a fight. Don't hate the media, said Jello Biafra once upon a time. Remember, he also said the number one enemy of progress is questions. We've arrived there again, boys and girls, and we can see who the enemy is. Don't hate the media for doing what they do. They're Pravda. They are Goebbels and his propaganda department. They are Orwell's Ministry of Truth. If you guys were wondering what that Ingsoc graphic was that I had on in the opener, they are Orwell's Ministry of Truth. They are dictating the perception. By dictating the perception, they hope to control the reality. And the intent is to demoralize. So I took Jello's words to heart and decided, even in my own small way, fat-ass, toothless cripple with some opinions, that I would become the media, that I would deliver these things to you at least once a week. Number one, it helps me because it's cheaper than therapy. But number two, I hope, against all indications, I hope that I can touch all of you in some way to keep you from being demoralized, to let you know that in spite of everything that they're throwing at us, and we acknowledge everything that they are, that we are not out of this fight. And that if we keep speaking to each other, hold ourselves to a standard and keep ourselves from being demoralized and stay strong, we can actually fucking win this thing. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Appreciate you guys being here. Managed to keep it right on the hour mark, pretty much. I appreciate you guys showing up. Hopefully, hopefully something I said might have gotten through to you. It's a labor of love right now, and I want to say hello to anybody who's catching the replays on BitChute. We had a little bit of problems last week. I got an email in the pipeline. I'll spare you guys the details. If you guys got anything out of anything that I had to say, you want to throw me some coin, I'm on Facebook Pay, I'm on PayPal, I'm on Venmo, Cash App, all that good stuff. And if you can't, or you don't feel like it, that's cool too. I get it. Not everybody's cup of tea and not everybody's in a good position, but here's what you can do for me. Just like we were talking about earlier. Let people know. Send them a replay of the program. Pass the word along. Words to the well. There's some gospel right there, Brother Pearson. There's some gospel right there. I love you guys, man. I really do. Again, let people know about the program. Send them a replay. Download it to MP3, rip it, send it to them. Give them something to listen to on the way to work. Let them know, man. This fat toothless cripple's on every fucking weekend, preaching some gospel. Maybe you dig it, maybe you don't. But the main thing you can do for them, and the main thing you can do for yourselves, is don't let yourself get demoralized. Don't ever give in to the black pill vibe that you've got no hope, that you've got no strength, that you've got no options. And the way to remind yourself of that is to remind yourself of the 3 prime directives. You guys know it, say it with me. Always be the signal in a world full of noise. Always be the light in a world full of darkness, and always, and this is the iron rule, strive to be that strength in a world full of weakness. Hold it together, man. Don't give in. Don't let yourself be demoralized. Don't let them dictate your perception and your reality. You guys send me a message, man. Remind me to get back into the Milgram experiments next week, because I really wanted to cover that, the Stanford prison experiment, and there were a couple other ones that I wanted to go into about that perception. Meantime, between time, all you guys got to remember is to keep your head sharp, your heart strong. I love you, man. Thanks for showing up. See you next Sunday. I love you all. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. I'm out. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Stay strong. I'll see you next Sunday. Peace.